All right. Hey folks, this is EJ and Samia from Turtle Talk. That's T squared. We are the founders of Turtle Tank. And this is a series where we're going to be talking it out about different subject matters that are near and dear to our hearts. Mm-hmm. And one of them is the subject of faux reparations. So what do we call faux reparations? And we have a lot of insider words that we use at Turtle Tank here. So what's faux reparations, EJ?
Faux reparations is what we refer to the money that we get from foundations and charities.
Right.
Because on the surface, it looks like it's reparative money to account for the injustice that our communities have had to go through, all the unpaid labor that they've contributed. But instead, it's really just like crumbs in terms of like what we're owed. And the very foundation of it is really just an extension of like colonization and that whole mentality.
Right. Tell me more about that. You were talking a little bit the other day about, you know, how it's like into missionary work and anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like my experience, you know, growing up in Nigeria, a country that was colonized by the British, was just kind of noticing how, you know, Europeans came into Africa, took our resources to like build their wealth. And then when they gave us our independence, they left. But they still like held us bondage through foreign aid, and acting as if they're out of the goodness of their hearts, they're going to give us this foreign aid to help us get our stuff together. Mm-hmm. And there's no acknowledgement of the role they've played in like our countries and like the economies and, you know, just the status of them. And I feel like, you know, that's the same kind of framework that foundations use to support our communities and community work here.
Exactly. All right, let's be clear about one thing though. We're not saying that we don't want charity or foundation money. Yeah. We're saying that it's not enough in the framework that it's set up in as a kind of reparative structure. Mm-hmm. And we're also saying we don't want to be dependent on that kind of dynamic where we're looked down upon as receiving something versus, you know, the necessity of what it is that we're offering that is actually of value to all the rest of the world, that should be paid for by all the rest of the world, that can be a part of a larger economy than just that framework. Yeah. Correct? So
it's not like, you know, right now it's kind of positioned as foundations are going in to like help out these under-resourced and like marginalized communities. And there's not like a recognition of like, oh, wow, these communities have a lot of value, and us supporting like the rebuilding of this community is going to be better for like the whole world, is going to be better for everyone.
Right.
So being able to come from like that perspective, that level of like partnership isn't there.
Right. Well, I mean, it is there on the surface.
Okay. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's why it's faux. So I like, EJ, how you know, compared foundation money to foreign aid. I think that's a brilliant comparison, and I'm sure other people have made it. But that is the dynamic essentially. Oh, we're gonna create a, you know, funnel this small, and we're gonna send you back, you know, a couple of percents of the hundreds of thousands of, you know, things that we've taken, and that's, you know,
faux reparations.
That's faux reparations. So,
yeah.
So there were a couple other things you wanted to say about that.
Well, I mean, I think as just someone who's worked in the nonprofit world, I see like some of the damage that being dependent on foundation money has had. I think one, you know, the way that foundations are structured and funding is structured is also very paternalistic in terms of like there's so many limits on like how money can be used. And, you know, a lot of times, you know, they ask for things to be quantified that aren't really quantifiable. Right. And when you're doing work on the ground, you kind of know, like, well, you're asking me to measure something that isn't, like, that's intangible. And so really, like, the criteria that we're given are criteria that are hard to like live up to. And then they create like a lot of pressure on organizations to like run around and try and like meet numbers and, you know, create positions for people who like their job is just like writing grants and writing reports and like gathering numbers. And, you know, it takes away from like the actual work that you're trying to do in the community. And I've also seen organizations kind of shift like their mission or their focus to fit into whatever is hot and whatever is getting money. And the third thing I think that's been really damaging is that instead of like communities and, grassroots groups like really collaborating and working together, there's this like competition because it's like, okay, there's this pool of money that we're all going to be fighting for. Yeah. And so it just ends up like damaging like the organization's mission and the work in a way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's the fighting for crumbs. I feel like, as an artist, you're looking at the same 10 grants that everyone is trying to get. And I think part of what we're saying here is that we're not saying that foundation money is bad. No. We're not saying that charity money is bad. We're saying that it can't be the sole source of revenue in any space, whether it be, as a grant or for an artist, it can't be the sole source of revenue. We can't be dependent on that source of revenue because it's not sustainable. It's not recurring. Oftentimes it's the first to go when there's a crisis. Yeah. I think we need to diversify our revenue pool, as nonprofits. And I think there's all of this kind of, I guess there are all these myths around how nonprofits should or shouldn't run, and whether, and they're actually really partaking in the free market capitalist space by being kind of the bottom fed, institutions. And so why are we participating that way? Why aren't we participating and saying, okay, we are valuable beyond just receiving foundation money. We're valuable here and we need to be paid here by creating kind of some level of market value, right? Without compromising our mission. And, we need to be thinking in this space of the global market, or the local market, the global market, outside of just depending on foundations. Yeah. So the services that we provide are that valuable that they need to be paid for, just like anything else that's being paid for by consumers or, by government or anything that, is required to be paid for. And so I think we have to value ourselves at that level and have to present ourselves in that way instead of present ourselves in such a way where we're begging for money. And I think that's kind of the, I don't know. What do you think?
Well, yeah, I think that those are kind of like the only options that we think we have. If you are a radical person or you're an activist, you kind of think okay, the route I have to fund this idea I have or fund this project is to either, find an organization that will, give me money to do it, or find a foundation, or maybe set up a crowdfunding campaign. But I guess what we're asking people to do is recognize the limitations of the foundation system and be able to think of other ways that we can generate our own income so that we have more independence and more freedom to bring our visions to life.
Exactly. It's about participating directly in the economic space instead of receiving indirectly money that was actually even plantation money. Yeah. And all sorts of other kind of money. That money's dirty, that money's dirty. Yeah. It's all dirty, at the end of the day. So trying to rid ourselves from participating is we're actually, limiting ourselves by receiving money that we're just assumingly keeping our hands clean, but in reality, none of that's clean either, right? And so how do we get out of that, unsustainable, codependent dynamic, and if we want, that's it. Yeah.
There's nothing else to say about that.
I don't think there is. I think nonprofits should be mission-driven organizations, but they don't have to operate outside of the realm of making revenue, right? And a lot of nonprofits right now are breaking into that and thinking about that. Nonprofits that work with food, nonprofits that work with energy, collectives that work with energy, and the legal structure itself doesn't really, it should serve the work versus, limit us and prevent us from doing the work, right? And so being a nonprofit doesn't mean we can't make money, right? It just means there are restrictions on how the money's spent and how it's made.
Yeah.
Right?
And also, on the other hand, right, being an enterprise or a business doesn't mean that you can't be mission driven.
Right.
You know, which is what we're proposing is
Right.
that as a radical entrepreneur, you let your mission and your vision and your values like drive you, and you also want to create financial independence by generating money.
Right.
Yeah.
So how do we think of our organizations a little bit differently outside of the foundation, grant, charity dependent world? And, you know, we don't want to do our work that way anymore. We're more important than that.
Yeah.
You know, we're more powerful than that. We can contribute in completely different ways than that. We can contribute in ways that people need us to contribute, where we participate in a larger piece of the money pie, essentially, and it can have access to other streams of revenue. You know, where we're being given money because we are offering amazing service, not because, you know, we need to be lifted out of of the mess that we're in, and no one else is willing to fund this. No one else cares about it. You know, how do we get to a point where the things that we do are that important that they're part of the market space? You know, so. And we have the capacity to do that.
Yeah, I mean, there are lots of great examples of organizations that are doing that and are on the cutting edge of that. And part of what we're going to be doing in Turtle Tank is highlighting some of those organizations and entrepreneurs to kind of share their vision and share how they've, like, you know, adapted. And
diversify their revenue streams, thought of things a little bit differently, combine nonprofits with for-profits with all sorts of different structures. So we want to think creatively. This is Turtle Tank. We're a virtual incubator and also a think tank. We're talking about radical economics, radical enterprise, and entrepreneurship. And we invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel or like us on Facebook if that's where you're watching us. Or sign up to our email list on our website at turtletank.co.
Yeah.
So we will be offering some things in the upcoming month. Probably in September. So join us.
Great. And if you love this video and what we're talking about, please go ahead and share it. The videos that get the most shares let us know that you're really interested in the topic, and we'll keep on creating more information for you around that topic.
Yeah, so we're gonna do some free live stuff based on how the response that we get on the videos that we're making. So if you're interested in this particular topic, you know, we'll get that to you and give you some productive, helpful, practical, you know, free class around this stuff.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, we're not just talking theory. We want to put stuff into practice.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
This is EJ and Samia from Turtle Tank. Thank you.
Thank you.